as well on the Baylor Athletics Facebook page and share your comments with us here. Elliot, it's good to see you, but this isn't the ending we had in mind for the opener. Texas State really dominated in a lot of phases.
Yeah.
Baylor did some things well, but Texas State was almost impossible to stop at times when they had the football. And they kept Baylor's run game from ever getting on track, throwing a couple of key turnovers, and that was too much for Baylor to overcome this evening against the Bobcats.
If you were to line the two teams up today and take the jerseys and the names off the helmet, and I had to guess by watching the game which one was Baylor and which one was Texas State, I would think it was the flip.
Yeah.
And that's a tough pill to swallow because this has, for a long time, been really good Baylor football teams. I mean, I'm looking down at the stadium right now. I see 2013, 2014, 2021 Big 12 champs. And last year we beat this team 42-7, right? We watched them. Even in a tough year in 2021 where we went out and won them, and we were not sure if JT Woods got that pick six or not because the TV film was so
right.
bad. We still went out there and found a way to get a win. And this was difficult because in every facet of the game, I feel like we lost it. Offense, defense, special teams. I don't feel like there was anything that we can say, hey, look, at least we won there. Right? I think a little bit later in the game, maybe in the fourth quarter, maybe it was a little bit more garbage time, things a little bit more lax. You saw us kind of get the offensive line operating and made some passes down deep. But there was just a lot of things that happened today that were tough.
You know, you look. I think a lot of the conversation heading into the season had been Blake Shapen versus Sawyer Robertson, right? People were talking about that quarterback controversy, or not controversy, but quarterback competition. I think for some people it was a controversy.
Yeah.
But that had been a lot of the chatter heading into the season. There was talk about a lot of the newcomers. Some of the newcomers impressed tonight. But I'll say this. You know, you look and. Both, you look at Blake Shapen. He was hurt tonight. I thought he had maybe his best game as a Bear in the sense that he gutted it out. Not much was going his way. Not much was going the team's way. And you could see him really giving his all out there and effectively. The problem was a couple of key turnovers. We had a couple of stalled drives early. We had a lot of penalties. He was under duress most of the game. You know, as we talk about tonight's game, I don't know what next week has in store. Maybe a win over Utah, and we kind of forget about this. But whatever the case, if Blake Shapen is healthy next week, you know, I thought he kind of showed us some things tonight when I think a lot of people kind of came into the game this evening thinking that the game was going to be won or lost or their conversation was going to be about Blake Shapen afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, with the way that the season ended last year, I think it was hard for a lot of people to be excited coming back into this year about what he might do because the last time we really saw him flash was that first half of West Virginia. We talk about that so much, right? Like threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half, and then really after that you kind of saw the decline of his production. And so, man, he played his heart out tonight. And, it's what's frustrating is that like part of what we struggled with today was the offensive line getting their reads right? Executing the plays, right? Simply put. And because of the fact that the offensive lineman couldn't get everything together, he got injured. Right, and he had to come out of the game, and that's, offensive line above all else. Right, block the run, but protect your quarterback. Right, you got to protect your quarterback, and so he got pretty banged up there tonight, and unfortunately had to step out. And Sawyer, I thought, came in and did a great job in relief. But man, I really think if he had time to go out there and command this offense the way that he wants to, it really could have been something special tonight.
I agree with you on that completely. And you look, I thought he was under duress almost the entire first half. It got better in the second quarter, and for the most part was better from there, although he still took a few hits. But the running game really never got going. Baylor finished with 108 yards on 32 carries. That's 3.5 yards a pop. One of those was the 31-yard Sawyer Robertson keeper scramble where he fumbled. So you take that away. And you're talking about 2 yards per carry this evening. I mean, Dominic Richardson may well be a key piece for this team this year, and I believe he will be. And we know what Richard Reese can do. They could well be a two-headed monster, but they got to have holes to run through. They did not tonight. They just did not, plain and simple.
Penetration. That defensive line penetrated on everything. I mean, even when it felt like even when runs went well, part of the reason why they did is because the running back cut up field, right? They saw a hole, they saw an opportunity, they saw some over pursuit, and they kind of cut against the flow of the play. We're an outside, we're a wide zone team, right? We want to go outside. We're trying to hit our head on the pylon or trying to hit our head on the first down marker, right? Go as wide as we can. And I thought maybe in the first drive we had a run play where we really blocked it beautifully, kind of along the left side. Dominic Richardson went out there and had a pretty solid run. But other than that, man, the penetration, and I don't know. Because it's kind of two things, right? It's like is the penetration because we just can't get there, Or is it because we still are getting used to each other because you have a lot of guys that are new, right? It's still a fairly new offensive line, even though a lot of the guys have played a lot of snaps. If it's that we can work on it, that's good, right? Then we can go and we can look at the film and we can coach it up. But if it's an athleticism issue, like we're not going to get an easier defensive line all season outside of maybe Long Island here in a couple weeks, right? I can promise you. I watched that Utah game the other day. That is a physical defensive line. And so what quite frankly is a little bit more frustrating to me than just the penetration was the 7 penalties on
that was rough.
False starts. Right? I mean, that
cost us points down at that end of the field.
It cost us points everywhere, man. Because, like, the thing is, I talked about this on the pregame show. I wanted to see us not playing behind the sticks. I didn't want to see seconds and longs. You didn't want to see third and longs, right? You don't want to see the playbook condensed. You want to see us go out there, and what do we want to do? We want to run a few plays really well, and we want to bleed the clock. That is what our offense is built to do. And then guess what? We run the ball, play off, or play action, take the top off. Now, the other thing too is not just the points that came off the board from that, but Derek, the reverse pass from Drake Dabney to Sawyer Robinson over on the scoreboard side.
Yes.
How many opportunities did we have to score those points?
We had so many. Well, in fact, I'm looking at the drive chart here, Elliot. You know, Baylor had to settle for a field goal the first time they had the ball. That was 3rd and goal. You're talking about that 3rd and 1, rather, knocking at the door, and then it becomes 3rd and 6. We don't convert. So there's 4 points. There's 4 points right there. We got 3 points, so maybe you don't worry about that too much because we got 3 points on a gift fumble from T.J. Finley, who had a fantastic day for Texas State. Baylor didn't move the ball. We got a field goal, then a punt, then a touchdown, then that long field goal attempt from Isaiah Hankins that didn't go. And then you look at the second half, Baylor had opportunities, including that Drake Dabney pass that you mentioned, had opportunities to win this game. Turnover on downs after a touchdown to open up the scoring in the second half. Then you had to settle for that field goal after the Texas State fumble. Drake Dabney, you try the razzle-dazzle. They had Sawyer Robertson open. If he throws it, I think probably people are thinking, well, you didn't want to have to pull out a trick play to beat Texas State, but, hey, they converted it. Fair enough.
Golly, man.
But they didn't. And so it had to settle for a field goal. Then that interception on the deflection at the goal line on the pass to Monterey Baldwin that was picked off in the end zone, and then the fumble on the long Sawyer Robertson run. You're talking there in that stretch. I think if you told me about 17 points in the second half, we're right there for the taking. I mean, I was about to say, I'm being conservative. I'm trying to err on the side of caution.
Right.
I mean, that's the difference. That's the difference in the ball game, finishing those drives and or not turning the football over.
Right. Yeah.
And this is a game. As we talk about this, it's the drive chart that tells the story of this football game. It is Texas State from their second drive on going touchdown, then fumble, then touchdown, fumble, touchdown. I mean, that was the game for them. And then you're looking at Baylor in the second half when it looked like they had some life after a touchdown, turning it over on downs, and after 2 scores, the interception and the fumble. The numbers, now there's some individual numbers that tell the story here, but the team numbers really don't. Baylor outgained Texas State 525 yards to 441.
500 yards of offense, Derek.
417 yards passing. Running the football, though, obviously that tells part of the story. Texas State finished with 143 yards, and they were really good at kind of paper-cutting Baylor to death on the ground. They didn't have many big runs, but they had a lot of they weren't playing behind the sticks, right? They had a lot of third and shorts, second and mediums. Baylor finished with 108 yards. Baylor outpassed Texas State 417 yards to 298. So those are a couple of numbers that tell part of the story. Here's another big one, penalties. Texas State with 50 new players and a new head coach, just 4 penalties for 34 yards. Baylor, 9 penalties for 45 yards. And a number of those.
How many were on offense, and I'm going to make another point. How many of those were on offense?
Let me look and see.
8 of the 9.
8 of the 9?
8 of the 9 were on
I was
going
to guess 7.
And by the way, we're at home.
Yeah.
We're at home. Those are false starts at home.
That's rough. And, I mean, drive killers.
Drive killers. Because we weren't running the ball effectively enough for us to overcome something like that today. Right? There's going to be games, Derek, guess what? Where this team has been playing together for a while and we have a couple false starts here and there, guess what? That's something that we can overcome. That's just not where we're at right now. Like, you needed to run. Look, how often do you see in week 1 you have a team from a Sun Belt or a team from a CUSA or a team from the American Conference that comes in and takes a top 25 team toe-to-toe and sometimes sneaks away with the win. It happens every year, and it's happening increasingly more frequent because I think the talent level across the board for college football is evening out to some degree. I think you have some people that are really at the top, but I think across the board, that Sun Belt Conference snatched wigs all season last year.
Yeah.
I watched Marshall go walk into Notre Dame and beat them last
That's
year.
right.
Right? And so it's not like games like this don't happen. By the way, I think Notre Dame still went and won, 9 or 10 games
They
after
did,
that?
yes.
And so it's not to say that we can't rally from this stuff, but you're going to have these moments of adversity, and the question is, how do you deal with those, right? Do we find a way to get off the field on third down? Do we find a way to create turnovers, which we did, right? But what can we do to not hurt ourselves, to put ourselves in the best position to win the game, right? Penalties, inexcusable, right? False starts, inexcusable. That's practice. That's focus, right? That's not something that was taken away from you. That's something you did to yourself. So,
We know as we talk about this, let's pivot a little bit because this is one game of 12, but we also know it's going to get a little bit harder. You got a top 15 team coming in here next week in Utah who beat Florida. You know, I'll admit there was a part of me that even coming into the day was fully prepared in my mind to say, well, the final score wasn't quite what we thought it might be. But because I think we knew that the offense that Texas State was bringing in, if they executed, it was going to put some of our young cornerbacks on an island. And I was kind of prepared for some big plays mentally. But I also thought we'd do a little bit better job of, pressuring whoever they put back there on quarterback. So I was kind of prepared for maybe, not quite the final score that we had last year. I obviously wasn't expecting the loss. But the question becomes what you just said. How do we respond? How do we bounce back? And I think if this team finds a way to beat Utah next week, easier said than done, but certainly doable, you kind of can chalk this off as an aberration. But to your point, the things we saw today aren't going to be the easiest things necessarily to fix quickly,
right.
But the season's unforgiving. You have to. Where's the lowest hanging fruit that you saw today to say, you know what, we can be better than this next week with the players that we saw on the field tonight?
Number one is penalties, right? I think you can absolutely fix penalties. And then number two is execution, right? I think that, if you think about what a defensive lineman's job is, stuff the run, right? Create pressure on the quarterback. How much pressure did we see on the quarterback today?
Not a lot.
Next to none. And guess what happened when we did get pressure?
He coughed it up.
He coughed it up. He coughed it
yes.
up, right? 2 times. He wanted to give us the ball, right? But a lot of what I saw today is when you have a defensive end rushing the quarterback, it's imperative that you don't get too far upfield and create a run lane behind yourself. Your job is to get to the level of the quarterback, right? Get even with the quarterback and press. You're supposed to press into the quarterback because what that does is that condenses the pocket. And guess what quarterbacks like? Space. What they don't like? Pressure, right? So once you condense that pocket, what it does is it causes them to start making poor decisions, right? Which on the back end, they start scrambling. Receivers, their timing gets thrown off, right? It creates an opportunity for us to screw things up. It's all about timing. At no point today did I see a defensive lineman that was going upfield think to himself, either let me stay level with the quarterback, press the pocket, or retrace their steps. They're all the way downfield. I'm seeing defensive ends 4, 5, 6 yards past the quarterback, right? You're creating that huge crease behind you, right? Even when you play 7-on-7 football growing up, you get 3 to 4 seconds to throw the football, right? That guy had 8 seconds all day to throw. He could stand back there as long as he wanted to. The reason why you get 3 or 4 seconds because that's how long the pressure's to take to get to you at some point. And so one thing I talked about, it was what we saw in 2021 that we haven't necessarily seen this year was a lot of the pressure that we had came from linebackers, right? It came from Jalen Petrie. It came from Terrell Bernard. But even back prior to that, it was coming from guys like Taylor Young. Right, you had pressure that was coming from the linebacker position because a lot of times if you got 5 guys blocking, you got a 4-man rush. Unless somebody wins one-on-one, you're just not going to get home, right? And that well, I say that happened to our offensive line, but that's okay. So you need to bring a 5th guy, right? You need to bring somebody, or you bring a 6th guy, right? You bring somebody other than what you have, those 4-down linemen. And even when we brought that pressure and we were in position to make plays, you didn't see them get made. Right? And I'm not, and here's the thing, is that as somebody that played and missed a whole lot of tackles, I'm not saying you should make the play every time. But what I'm saying is the law of large numbers says that you should, as you have your hands on a quarterback, in some instances get him down. And so that's another thing that I really like to see defensively is just gap integrity, right? Do your job, do it 100 miles an hour, and put yourself in a position to make a play. And then pressure the quarterback. We got to pressure the quarterback.
And we got some pressure on, but to your point, I think of several instances where it seemed like we had him wrapped up and did not, including one that led to a touchdown and one that led to a first and goal situation. Again, what you just described, I think Baylor fans who saw that can picture that. The guy's running behind the quarterback and nearly chasing him down from behind after they passed him the first time, but he was able to get away and throw a strike downfield. Baylor today had one sack and 6 tackles for loss, and I think a lot of those tackles for loss came later on in the ball game. And in fact, you're talking about really them being in. We talked about Texas State was able to stay ahead of the down and distance throughout most of the game, right. And when Baylor was able to get them behind, good things normally happen, but they didn't do that enough, and Baylor wasn't able to do enough with the opportunities that they were given this evening. If you want to join in the conversation, we are on Facebook Live. You can add your comments there, or you can tweet us with the hashtag BUFanForum. You can watch on Facebook Live on Baylor Athletics, or you can tweet us again, hashtag BUFanForum. Elliot, it was a bummer tonight. It was fun to be back out here with you and everyone. That part was it was positive for a while, getting everyone back here. The question now becomes, what do the Bears do in the week ahead to get ready for a big game? We'll continue to talk about that as we roll on. We'll take a break here in just a moment. When we come back, we'll listen to a few of the highlights from the voice of the Bears, John Morris and J.J. Joe, in their call of the game this evening. There were some bright spots for the Bears. I thought at quarterback, I thought the receivers were some bright spots, and we'll hear some of the big plays that they made a little bit later on. We'll talk about some of the key new pieces for this season and look ahead with the schedule ahead of the Bears. 8 home games for Baylor this year. And, of course, we will have the year's inaugural edition of Coffey is for Closers later on this evening. We're coming to you live from McLean Stadium alongside Elliot Coffey. I'm Derek Smith. We'll take a timeout and come back with more from the Baylor Sports Media Network after this.
No matter which road you take, the Toyota...
All right, we have 4 more breaks after this.
On your path, you're your own boss. Set your own hours.
Look at that sunrise.
You may find yourself in some pretty remote places.
Whoa, that view. It's amazing.
Or in places where pastimes become stories that become legends.
I got one. It's a keeper. Hey, get a picture. No one's going to believe this.
And
Hold on a second.
binge watching stars and dreaming about all
Shape and run.
the next day.
You know what? I'm catching a bigger fish tomorrow.
Built to follow your path, the Toyota Tundra. This Texan knows how to say.
Okay.
Toyota is a proud partner of Baylor Athletics. Your local Toyota dealer or Toyota.com to check out the rugged Tundra today. Toyota, let's go places. See packages and options at Toyota.com for feature availability.
Okay.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
If you need a trailer, Flat Rock Trailers has got you covered. From light-duty single-axle utility trailers to the big Tex tandem duals. We also carry a full line of enclosed cargo trailers. Need a motorcycle trailer? We've got them. Need a dump trailer? We've got the largest selection in the state. Oilfield trailers? We carry a full line of big Tex trailers to handle all your needs. Trailer repairs? We repair all makes and models. We'll even rent you a trailer if you need to use one for a day. Flat Rock Trailers, your number one source for all your trailer needs. Find us at flatrocktrailers.com.
This is the Baylor Football Postgame Fan Forum, brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, championship partner of Baylor Athletics. Visit Texas Farm Bureau Insurance online to find a local agent today. Baylor Scott and White Health, the official hospital and healthcare system of Baylor Athletics. Your healthcare, your way. HEB, the official grocer of Baylor Athletics. Proudly serving Texans since 1905. TFNB, the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Premier ER and Urgent Care. Feel better now. Nissan, innovation for excitement. Here are your hosts, Derek Smith and Elliot Coffey.
Back into the postgame fan forum here at McLean Stadium. Tough night as the Bears fall to 0-1 on the young season. A 42-31 loss to Texas State. Unfortunately, the numbers we didn't want to give, one of them is this. Texas State, their first ever win against Baylor, and this is the 10th matchup between these two teams. And Elliot, of course, you have Texas State alums in your family, so I don't envy you on that.
My dad in the Hall of Fame, 2 uncles played there. So, needless to say, the family group message is popping off right now.
Yeah, we're 9-1 all time against Texas State, but as far as they're concerned, it's 1-0 right now.
Correct. I think I might have to spend Thanksgiving away from the family.
Well, hopefully, maybe things will improve by then. For Texas State, their first ever win against Baylor and their first win against a Power 5 school since joining FBS. Let's listen to a few of the big plays and look at the drives in this one. And Baylor's loss to the Bobcats today. And here's some of the calls from the voice of the Bears, John Morris. It was a good start for Baylor. Baylor held Texas State to a 3-and-out and then drove 59 yards down the field, apparently for an early touchdown. However, one of 8 offensive penalties sent the Bears back from a 3rd-and-1 to a 3rd-and-6. They were unable to convert. They had to settle for a field goal. It was 3-0. Texas State scored a touchdown on their next possession, 8 plays, 75 yards. They went up 7-3. Baylor, another field goal after a Texas State turnover, made it 7-6. And then before you hardly knew what to do, Texas State had jumped out to a surprisingly sizable lead, 28-13. Baylor, however, scored their first touchdown of the young season on this play, a tough 9-yard run by Blake Shapen.
Now it's Reese back in there. Play action. Shapen looking to throw. He's going to run to the 5, to the end zone. Touchdown, Blake Shapen. Shapen runs it in from 10 yards out. The Bears are in the end zone for the first time tonight. They cut into that Texas State lead.
Wow. Extra point made it 21-13. The Bears were down 21-6 at that point. Elliot, a 9-play, 72-yard drive. Blake Shapen got better blocking on that drive, and not surprisingly, that was Baylor's best hold of the football in the first half. Shapen today finishing 21-31 for 304 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, along with a touchdown on the ground as well. He saw the hole. He held onto the ball long enough to see if anyone was going to come open in the end zone.
Yeah.
And then he knew a hit was coming, but he absorbed it as he ran into the end zone anyway. And I thought that was really kind of his night in a microcosm.
You see guys make business decisions all the time, right, when they're running the football. He knew he was going to take that hit right across the goal line, and he still went for it. And like I said, he threw his body out there on the line. You know, you want him to get that read and dump the ball off, and everybody's cheering, and he's standing up fine. But he went and got it. You know, it was a tough, gritty touchdown that he went and got, and it finished the arguably the best drive that we had all day.
And at that point, let's not lose sight of the fact he'd been hit several times at that juncture already. And I think that was encouraging. And again, honestly, he didn't finish the game. We're going to have to find out what's in store for Blake. But we hope that he's back out there, and if he is, I thought that was a good sign. Last year, there were times, almost a little, get that a little shell shock effect when you get hit so many times. I thought he looked gutsy and gritty on that drive and others. And I think that was good to see. It was a tougher, scrappier version and an effective version of Blake Shapen there.
It was good. And the other thing that I'll say about that too is, and you're going to dig into this, that's bookended by a 13-play drive and a 12-play drive. 13 for 60 for 5 minutes and 36 seconds, and a 12-play drive for 75 yards and 3 minutes and 18 seconds. That's exhausting for the defense, right? That is 25 plays between 2 drives. I can't stress you how important it is that Blake, although he's tired and he was going to get that hit, he knew how tired his big boys were going to be, and he had to give him some time, and he had to put some points on the board. So I really respect the fact that he went out there and found a way to make it happen.
Well, I think a key point in this game is this stretch we're talking about, right? Blake scores that touchdown. It's now 21-13. Baylor's within a score. You're kind of doing the math. Hey, if we can get a 3-and-out or hold them maybe just 1 first down, we're going to have a chance to punch it in before halftime.
Yep.
Instead, that drive you just talked about gave up 12 plays, 75 yards. Texas State goes up 28-13. So Baylor gets the ball to start the second half, and Chapin really picked up where he left off. Baylor was at their best tonight on third and fourth down, interestingly enough, even though in a lot of cases those down and distances were not the most favorable down and distances. But this play on a third down, a really nice job holding back, waiting for the right time to throw the football, and then it was a great throw and a great route run by a tight end, Drake Dabney.
Third down play here. Chapin will go behind center. Center is Clark Barrington, the BYU transfer. Chapin turns, fakes a handoff, looking to throw. Pass caught by Dabney at the 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. He is in for the touchdown. Drake Dabney on the receiving end. 52 yards, 53 yards on the receiving touchdown by Drake Dabney.
Career game today for Drake Dabney, 6 catches, 101 yards, and that's not the only touchdown he scored tonight. I'm going to be interested to see, Elliot. You know, the tight ends have been a big part of what Baylor has done. You think about the season Ben Sims had a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You know, Baylor's all-time tight end receiving leader in touchdowns. Early last year, he was showing that, like he was on track for that effectiveness, but it tailed off, and that sort of coincided with when things kind of went south for Blake Chapin as well. If Baylor can get good quarterback play this season, consistent quarterback play, I'm going to be very interested to see what Drake Dabney, if he can put the kind of season together this year that we thought Ben Sims might have been on his way to at the beginning of last year.
Yeah, I think tight ends just create such a mismatch for most players that are covering them. I mean, if you think about a linebacker is typically going to be somewhere in the range of, realistically, 5'10 to 6'2", right? Somewhere in the range of 220 to maybe 240 pounds. That's going to be difficult in space for somebody that size, that build to cover a tight end. And so all this is about creating mismatches in space. And that's what you saw, you know, on that big pass. And I think ultimately that's all we want from this offensive line is to give Blake time to see those mismatches and put the ball in those players' hands. And that was a perfect example of it, man. That was a play where he caught it on the sideline. He was running. He had a safety that was coming for him. Due to his size, what did the safety do? Did he try to hit him high or did he try to hit him low? He dove at his ankles, right? He dove at his ankles, did a little stutter step, and then ended up marching towards the end zone. And I think there's so much opportunity for that mismatch, particularly in the Big 12, where you don't have as big of linebackers and safeties that are going to be matched up against him. You can really get some good opportunities.
And Drake, by the way, 6'5", 248 pounds. That's the mix match of which you are speaking. So that made it 28-21. Baylor went for and got the 2-point conversion. Nice job by Ketron Jackson going up to get the throw by Blake Chapin. And it's a one-score game at that point. But again, key spot in this game, Baylor gives up an 8-play, 75-yard drive for a touchdown. It's now 35-21. Baylor drove down the field moments later. At this point, Blake Chapin, who had been hit multiple times, went out there with it's not a brace on his knee, but just kind of a puffy sleeve on his leg, and he was unable to finish the game, but he continued to gut it out. There was a stretch there that Sawyer Robertson was in there the first time we saw the Mississippi State transfer, and I think all in all, for the most part, it's hard to judge a lot, but you didn't see anything from him that really, I think, concerned you if he ends up going in that starting role. We heard good things about him. Unfortunately, he was wide open in the flat for a touchdown, but Drake Dabney, who's a better receiver than passer, missed him with the pass. The Bears had to settle for a field goal. That made it 35-24, and then really the game got out of hand on another long drive by the Bobcats early in the fourth quarter. They scored on a Joseph Hobart 26-yard touchdown catch. That made it 42-24. The Bears tried to come back and, in fact, made it interesting. 12-play, 78-yard drive. Blake Chapin, a really gutty stretch for him. He found Drake Dabney wide open in the end zone on third down.
Two backs in the backfield, offset eye, Chapin under center, turns, fakes the pitch, now looking to throw, back of the end zone, he's got it, touchdown. Drake Dabney, touchdown Bears. Well executed play, fake there by Blake Chapin, and Dabney with the touchdown, pulls Baylor within 42-30 with the extra point to come.
Unfortunately, that would be as close as Baylor would get. The extra point was good. That made it 42-31. That was the final score. Baylor had chances to climb back in it. You knew they were going to have to get 2 scores and 2 stops, and they had 2 good drives and 2 stops. but unfortunately neither of them ended in a score. There was the Sawyer Robertson fumble on a long run on a keeper, which was preceded by a pass that was off the shoulder pads of Monterey Baldwin in the end zone, and then a diving interception snuffed out a Baylor drive right at the goal line. Dabney led the way for the Bears through the air, 6 catches, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. On the whole, I think one bright spot, though, Elliot, today might have been the play of the receivers, which last year at times was pedestrian, even in the early games. Tonight you had Drake Dabney with a 100-yard game, the first of his career. Ketron Jackson, 6 catches, 71 yards. Jonah Burton, we heard good things about a preferred walk-on in Jonah Burton.
Was out there. Yeah, he had some tough catches over the middle, took some big hits, fourth down conversion, some really big stuff. I mean, he had that one catch right on top of the BU logo right on the 50-yard line on that 4th and 13 or whatever it was. Yeah, they had to go and review it. So it was yeah, man. I mean, I think that's what's hard for this about this, right? Is that on one hand you look at this and you say, hey, look, is this a talent issue, right? This is a lot of young guys, this is a lot of new guys, a lot of walk-ons out there. So is it a talent issue or is it an execution issue? And I'm telling you, like, even if we would have won this football game, I think we probably wouldn't feel super great about this right now, right? Even if we would have found a way in the second half to pull it off. We'd be wiping our furrowed brows, feeling a little bit better about it, but I think we would still identify some concerns. There's also some talent out there. Those receivers looked good. We didn't get to see much from the running backs today because the offensive line just wasn't working together, and at times it looked like maybe they were running different plays, right? Maybe they just weren't sure about what was going on. But those receivers are talented, and I think if we can give the quarterback time, right, whoever that ends up being for right now, if we can give the quarterback time, those guys are going to make plays. And I was very encouraged about how they never gave up. They kept fighting the whole game.
And another guy who had a big game was Hal Presley, 4 catches for 83 yards. A good game for him, and I agree. You hope that there's opportunities for him to, for whoever's back there at quarterback next week to have the time to get the ball down the field because the guys catching the football are much better. And I feel for Blake Shapen, honestly, right now. You're talking about a guy who caught a lot of, he just kind of Although I did find this interesting, a couple local TV reporters said that Blake Shapen was wanting to go back in late in the game, and Coach Aranda said, Blake, we can't protect you right now. And so that, and again, I think that's recognizing the situation, and hopefully that's a sign that there's going to be a little more Blake to come. Actually, I now see a couple people have reported that Blake Shapen may have hurt his MCL, according to Coach Aranda, so they're going to do an MRI come Monday. So we'll have to find out about that a little bit later on, but hopefully a good report there. That is Rewind, a tough one tonight, 42-31. Texas State drops the Bears to 0-1 on the season. If you want to join in the conversation, hashtag BU Fan Forum on Twitter, or you can follow in on Facebook Live on Baylor Athletics and send us your comment, your thoughts there. Take a time out and come back with more. We've got Coffee is for Closers, a couple of segments from now. Take a break and come back to McLean Stadium after this here on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Jeff S. Mazda and the Baylor.
I'll be right back.
Needs to be number one. Hard work, determination, commitment. The number
3, but the last is an outbreak. Like you just go straight into it. So, 2. And then close, and I'll play that last break, and it ends with the closing billboards.
Plus, your trade is now worth more than ever.
No worries.
Get our best cash offer in minutes. Jeff Haas Mazda on the Katy Freeway.
Number 1 based on 2021 sales and stock volume and a call-free check.
Hi, this is John Morris for Green Eye Associates. Let Green Eye Associates, Doctors Leanne Green and Avery Platt help you see
what channel
clearly. Their experienced team enjoys making your eye exam fun, easy, and accurate, providing trustworthy and honest communication about your eyes and eyewear. Visit them on Lake Air Drive or at greeneyeassociates.com to see their services and a wide selection of eyewear made on-site by experts. Green Eye Associates, official optometrist of Baylor Athletics.
For a limited time, get high-performance, ultra-reliable internet from Astound Broadband, starting as low as $25 per month. And now we have mobile, too. Visit astound.com to order the #1 rated internet. Create the perfect plan with fast speeds to meet all your needs, plus get a 2-year price lock when you upgrade to award-winning gig internet. No contracts, no hidden monthly fees, and no data caps. Switch today. Head to astound.com or call 1-800-4ASTOUND. Restrictions apply. See website for details.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You're listening to Baylor Football on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Back here on the Postgame Fan Forum at McLean Stadium alongside Elliot, Coffey, Jordan Chunwith is here as well from Playfly, our new media partner. Excited to work with him, with Luke, with Gordon, and the team here as well, and appreciate Jordan giving us almost a very professional broadcast on Facebook Live. Appreciate that, Jordan. I know he's done a lot of work, a lot of new things, a lot of new elements this season, and Jordan has been in here making sure they ran smoothly. So we very much appreciate that. As we dive back, was a shocker, although if you watch the game, almost from the early part in the game, you realize Colorado was going to have a chance to win the football game, and they did. They knocked off number 17, TCU. Their first game since playing in the national championship game, they lose to Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and the Buffaloes, 45-42.
Oh, man, that was a fun game to watch.
It was.
I tell you, Shadur Sanders throwing for 310 yards, Travis Hunter playing 110 snaps between offense and defense. Having one of the filthiest touchdowns you've ever seen, as well as one of the worst or one of the best picks right in the red zones you've ever seen, too. It was a good game. It was fun to watch.
It was. Of course, that's an old Big 12 rival and a future Big 12 rival in Colorado. Look, Big 12. A little bit of that today, and I think
has never had somebody like him step into the sport the way that he has. It's just unique, and it's fun. Like I said, I'm glad Colorado's coming back to the conference. When I played Colorado, it was a part of the Big 12, just to date myself a little bit. That was always a fun trip going up to Boulder. And so I'm excited that they're back in the conference, and I think what that excitement of that program brings in to the Big 12 is really enjoyable, and I don't hate seeing TCU lose.
That's true, absolutely, 100%. Hey, have you ever eaten at a restaurant that a celebrity or sports figure owns, and they got their name all over it, and you get in there, and maybe the food's only so-so, and they're drawing people in on the strength of their name? You ever been to a mediocre Shula Steakhouse? I have not, but that's exactly the kind of example that I am potentially talking about here. And I'll just say, I think when you get a Colorado may not struggle next week, but you can see the elements are in place with that new look team that he's put together something interesting that's more than just, it's a shiny object because he was a great player who's now a coach.
That's the thing about college football that I love so much is that there's 12, maybe 13 games, maybe 14, 15 games with the playoff now, but you got to show up every week. And whether or not they find a way to win 7, 8 games or they end up winning 5, they showed up this week. And that's what mattered. Mm-hmm. And so that was a very, very fun football game to watch. I think now that they put the film out there, people are going to know how to scheme them a little bit better because TCU is probably guessing, right?
Yeah.
They're maybe watching some old film from Jackson State. They're probably watching some old Colorado film to figure out, hey,
and in fairness, so are we today.
So are we, right?
So are we,
trying to figure out what kind of scheme they're going to run. But today they showed up, and that was a very fun team, and I'm excited to see what they potentially do this year.
TCU was watching Jackson State film. Baylor was watching Incarnate Word film, and it was the coaches who left those 2 spots that we just mentioned who got the wins today. Other Big 12 scores, Texas a 37-10 opening win over Rice down in Austin. In State College, it was Penn State all over West Virginia. The 7th-ranked Nittany Lions 38-15 over Rice. Kansas State, who always seems to lose a head-scratcher early in the year. I think they're the team that I would probably be my pick to win the Big 12, Elliot, if I'm guessing right now. Though they did not drop a head-scratching game today, 45-0 over Southeast Missouri. Oklahoma all over Arkansas State, 73-0. Here's one that did surprise me just a little bit. Iowa State with a 30-9 win over Northern Iowa, because Iowa State's another team that almost always has a mind-boggling loss.
Northern Iowa always does something. There's always something
do.
confusing. I don't know if they all went to high school together or if it maybe just that game is just perennially a drunk game, but it's always close, right? There's always some regional Iowa school that marches into Ames and makes it really tough on them, and in some cases beats them. North Dakota State, how many years in a row did they show up and beat them? Right. But yeah, went out there, and especially with.
Well, I was going to say, they've had every negative headline. Well, they've had nothing but negative headlines with a lot of the allegations of gambling amongst members of the team.
Allegedly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, they've had to deal with that, yet they came out today and played well. So go figure, 30-9. Cincinnati in their first game as a Big 12 conference member is 66-13 over Eastern Kentucky, a dominant win there. Houston, their first game as a member of the Big 12, knocked off UTSA. That's a game, 17-14. A lot of headlines for UTSA, and it was Houston getting the victory today with former Tech quarterback Donovan Smith throwing a couple of touchdown passes. Here's a game that, honestly, if you had told me maybe this game would have ended up more like this, I might have believed it, at least in terms of the closer margin. Oklahoma State, a 27-13 win over Central Arkansas. They're talking about, boy, the score wasn't what we thought it might be. We got the win tonight. That's obviously what we hoped at the times we'd be saying at the end of this game tonight for Baylor, but it was not the case. And then, of course, on Thursday night, UCF knocked off Kent State 56-6, and at Kansas last night 48-17 over Missouri State. So, Elliot, this was the first of 8 home games for the Bears this season, most ever in program history in a year. It's the most in the nation this season, and it obviously was not a good start. A loss to Texas State heading into the game against Utah. And, of course, against Utah, you're talking about a future conference mate, the nation's number 14 team, with a solid, very strong win over Florida on Thursday night. I'll admit, 8 home games. You'll lose the first one to Texas State. It feels like you got to make one, just from a fan standpoint, getting people out on a hot Saturday, get them to come in from Dallas and Houston. I'll admit it worries me just a little bit, and I hope the Baylor fans, kind of make Bear Country a tough place to play these next couple of games, because these next 3 games, and I'll include Long Island in this just because, I expect that to be a win, but you want to play well in this one. They're going to be big. They're going to be Utah next week, and then Texas later on are big, big games, and we need the fans out here for that. I mean, there's 7 more home games, and to lose the first one to Texas State, it puts a damper on the way people are going to talk about the team and when people are thinking about spending their Saturday. But boy, we're going to need them out there. Those are going to be 2 big games for this 2023 team in terms of getting where they want to be. And hopefully the fans kind of make their way out here and build on the effort from the fans who I thought we saw staying late tonight trying to get the Bears back in it.
Yeah, I mean, next week is a big game. It's a big game. Here's what I think. Just from interactions that I've gotten, whether it's text messages, phone calls that I've gotten after the game, what I'm seeing on social media, everybody's on DEFCON 1 right now, DEFCON 2, right? I think what does that mean? Like nukes have been shot at DEFCON 1?
I'm not sure, but it's not great.
Yeah, right. I think
people are on edge.
I think the lower the number gets, actually the more concerning the situation is. But this is one game, right? We lose football games. It happens. That game plan that Texas State put out there today. They played an excellent football game. Now, don't compare what Texas State did today to all of their other games, because they'll say, well, can't believe that we lost to Texas State, but then they went and lost to X, Y, and Z, right? Joe's University, whoever it is. The team that showed up today for Texas State played an excellent football game.
They did.
The team that showed up for Baylor today didn't execute as well as we needed to. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that the season is over. Like, oh, my God, people are like, lose to Texas State, can't ever recover. I use Notre Dame as an example.
You're right. That was a great example.
Notre Dame lost to Marshall at home last year.
Hey, Kansas State's played for Big 12 titles in years that they've lost games like this early in the year.
Northern Iowa,
South Dakota.
Yeah,
exactly. The Coyotes,
right?
not Coyotes, the Coyotes.
Exactly. And what I take away is that with all the mistakes that we made, with all the opportunities that we missed, we still had an opportunity to win that football game today. And so I promise you that when we get rid of those errors that we had out there, whether it's the false starts or it's the missing a wide-open Sawyer Robertson in the end zone, or if it's a throwing an interception on the 1-yard line, I'm expecting those things to weed out. You don't expect that to continue week in and week out. And so the talent's out there, right? They just have to execute. And so I look at a game like next week where you might get a flash of excellence from folks because they're really excited by the opportunity. It's on the road for them. They're coming from Utah to Texas at 11 a.m.
10 o'clock their time.
10 o'clock their time. That's an early kickoff, right? That gives you a little bit of an edge, and we have the home field advantage. And so I would encourage anybody that's on a 50-50 thinking about whether or not they're going to make the trip. It's going to be important to be here.
It is important. It's going to be important for this team to have the crowd behind them.
I think it's going to be a fun football game, man. You get 8 of these this year.
8.
You got 52 weeks in the year and 8 of them to come up here and watch the game. Come watch a football game. Bring the family. Bring some friends.
Yeah, 100%.
Buy a polo.
Yeah, buy a polo. Get your This Is Bear Country. Get your This Is Bear Country gear.
Go see the new Bear Cubs over in the
Indian Baylor here.
Yeah, right.
You belong in Baylor Marcom, Elliot.
Man.
I think. Yeah.
Come on,
100%. Yeah, it's going to be important for this team, and obviously there are areas they can improve on. And as we get into Coffee is for Closers next, we're going to talk about those. Some areas as we think about who gets the car, the steak knives, and who is in the doghouse this week. In fact, we would love to hear your thoughts, whether on Facebook Live or on Twitter with the hashtag BUFanForum. Send us your Coffee is for Closers picks. That is what is coming up next. Alongside Elliot Coffey, I'm Derek Smith here at McLean Stadium. We'll be back with more of the Fan Forum right after this on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Texas Golf Carts has been providing sales, service, and leasing to Central Texas since 1993. We offer many different parts and accessories from various manufacturers and are the only authorized Yamaha and Club Car dealer in Central Texas. Visit our new location off Highway 6 in Waco or call us at 848-5991 and let us know what you are looking for, and we'll provide the expertise in meeting and achieving your desires and specifications. We are also proud supporters of the Baylor Bears. Sick 'em, Bears.
No matter which road you take, the Toyota Tundra is the perfect way to navigate it. On your path, you're your own boss and set your own hours.
Look at that sunrise.
You may find yourself in some pretty remote places.
Whoa, that view. It's amazing.
Or in places where pastimes become stories that become legends.
I got one. It's a keeper. Hey, get a picture. No one's going to believe this.
And each day ends binge-watching stars and dreaming about all the things you'll do the next day.
You know what? I'm catching a bigger fish tomorrow.
Built to follow your path, the Toyota Tundra. This Texan knows how to sick 'em. Toyota is a proud partner of Baylor Athletics. Visit your local Toyota dealer or Toyota.com to check out the rugged Tundra today. Toyota, let's go places. See packages and options at Toyota.com for feature availability.
It is Frank Harris.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You're listening to Baylor Football. On the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Back here Forum alongside Elliot Coffey. I'm Derek Smith. Aaron Sexton, our producer at our flagship station studios, ESPN Central Texas. You can also watch online at Baylor Athletics Facebook. Elliot had a poll question earlier today. We asked people, which newcomer do you think will have the biggest impact? Was it Keytron Jackson, Dominic Richardson, Mike Smith, or the Barrington brothers? Of course, the Barrington brothers, the offensive line duo from BYU. Mike Smith, the linebacker who really showed out in practice from Liberty all season, all in both spring and summer ball. Dominic Richardson, the Oklahoma State running back transfer, or Keytron Jackson from Arkansas. You know, I think if we'd done the poll before the game, it would have been Keytron Jackson. And actually, Keytron Jackson kind of showed out late in the game. But Dominic Richardson edged him out, 46.7% of the vote, 42.2% for Keytron Jackson. We appreciate everyone who voted this evening. And, Elliot, it is time now for our first Coffee is for Closers of this 2023 season.
Sure is.
We go back to the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. They had a little sales meeting at the beginning, a little motivation. Let's tell people or remind them what this is.
Oh, yeah. So in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, there was a sales meeting. They had 3 salesmen. They said, we got a list of awards for these guys, right? First place wins a Cadillac Eldorado. Second place wins a set of steak knives. And third place got fired, right?
Right.
So you pick where you want to end up here. So when we started Coffee is for Closers, NIL
was not a thing, yeah.
So we had to have a disclosure that said we're not actually giving out an Eldorado or steak knives. Now, we aren't giving out an Eldorado or steak knives because we don't have the budget for it yet. But maybe, who knows, one day maybe we will give away a car and some steak knives. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to say, hey, the Eldorado is the person we think played the best. The steak knives is the person or group, and in some cases, the whole team, right, gets second place. And then we're going to talk about who has the biggest room for improvement going into next week, right?
Yeah,
and they go into the doghouse.
They're in the doghouse this week. We've seen guys bust out of the doghouse in years past. Before we do, Elliot, we got to say, people might have noticed some changes on the broadcast this season. This is our first year at a new partnership with Playfly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of exciting things that are taking place with this, and even just starting off with a little bit of a different sound on the broadcast this year. And we're excited for all the things that partnership is going to bring for Baylor Athletics. There is one voice, though, that people aren't hearing on the radio this year with us, and we do. Now's the time for people who don't know. We say that Dave Shook is not with us with this year. You know, his old affiliations. He's remained with those, and he's with a new school.
Yeah,
this
need to make
season.
sure that he's not with us on the broadcast.
This broadcast.
He's
good
still
point.
with us.
Yes, he is still with us, but he's working for another school. I'm going to say Boston College because that's what I want to go with. It's not Boston College, but you can do the research if you're interested.
Whatever.
But absolutely. But Dave, just know that they're the honorary Eldorado. You always have the keys to it and can always take it for a little spin.
You get it, Dave. We miss you. It's not the same doing it without you, and you were an absolute blast and a joy and a wonderful person to do this with for a long time. And so, yeah, you get that Eldorado.
Eldorado, absolutely. And his fingerprints, I think we picked up some things from him that have stayed a part of this. Well, let's look at our first honorary. Let's look at our first Coffee is for Closers this year. We'll start with the Cadillac, then the steak knives, and then the doghouse. I don't know if you and we may be in agreement on the Eldorado. Yes. Blake Chapin. Blake gets it.
Yeah, Blake gets it.
Gutsy, gritty effort tonight. I mean, the numbers were good. I think if you'd asked people, okay, Blake Chapin's going to go 21-31, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He doesn't turn over the football, and he adds a touchdown on the ground. Probably going to be a pretty good game for the Bears. Unfortunately, it was not. But for a guy who I think has absorbed a lot of negativity from fans.
Immense pressure on him.
A lot of pressure. He wanted to be out there tonight. And when he was out there, he performed well, even when he wasn't at 100%. That was a big thing. And we learned from Coach Randy, he wanted to go back out there late in the football game tonight. And I thought some of the areas that fans would complain last year, whether it was just a little bit of being tentative, whether it was not going for big plays downfield, whether it was just, that kind of leadership thing. He showed all of those things, I thought, in good effort tonight. And it's unfortunate that, we don't know if he's going to be able to play next week because they're going to wait the results of an MRI on Monday. Yeah. And, of course, it came in a loss. But if he's back out there, you feel good about what you saw.
Yeah, I mean, I even think about that last touchdown that he had to Drake Dabney here on the end zone away from the scoreboard in the horseshoe where he clearly couldn't plan on that front leg, and he still, just absolutely spun it like a baseball player, right? He looked like a shortstop grounding a ball.
Just like he is,
first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so just finding a way to create that velocity behind the ball, knowing that he didn't have his legs to plant and get in there. The guy is a gamer. He had, like I said, immense pressure coming into this season. He had a lot of negativity around how he performed at the end of last season. And as a matter of fact, of all the things that didn't go well in the bowl game, he continued to play pretty tough in that bowl game last year. And so he is a tough guy. He is a smart guy. He understands this offense. This offensive line needs to get together. It needs to keep him healthy. If there's one initiative to have all season, it's to keep Blake healthy. I think it's a great place to start. And so really, really impressed by how he kept fighting tonight. Right,
He
gave it every ounce that he had.
And it was a good. He had himself a good football game, and again, I like that you saw improvement in areas. It looked like he made the most of the last 8 months since that cold night in Fort Worth when the season came to an end last year. So he gets the Cadillac. What about the steak knives for you? Dabney over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Keytron Jackson, I don't think we saw his best stuff tonight, and he still finished with 6 catches for depth chart. We're going to see a lot of those same guys out there. They can improve. I think the defensive line, you look at Hall, you look at Franklin, they've got to improve. And, I think we're going to see Jarrell Boykins here, hopefully maybe next week, but certainly it sounds like from what Coach Aranda said the week after, a couple weeks. He's a JUCO transfer who we expect to have a big impact. So there's some guys kind of waiting in the wings. I think Trevin Mai, the Oregon transfer, came along with Matt Powledge. And, obviously I think if there's anyone, Matt Powledge I think is going to do a lot of good things here. Rough start tonight for the defensive unit, but we've heard a lot of good things about him. I mean, we've seen how his safeties performed when he was the safeties coach. Hopefully, I think this is something that he'll build on, and now we just kind of see how that teaching goes this week as he works with those guys and getting a little more into the scheme, executing the scheme, I should say, that he's bringing back in here.
I'm tired of seeing cushion in the secondary. I think there's a lot of things. The film is out there now, which is a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you handle it. Right? The film is out there, right? You can watch it, but so can everybody else. And so it's an opportunity for you to go in there, identify things that you did really well and enhance those, and find things you did wrong or things that you did poorly and work on them. Because like I said, though on my film, I made plenty of mistakes. I made plenty of mistakes in my playing career that you saw out here today. Right? Don't let me get on my soapbox and say I'm above making X, Y, Z mistake. I never got upfield too far. I never, pushed into the boundary the way I needed to when somebody's running an out route in the zone, right? I never hit the gap, or maybe I didn't blitz as hard as I could have, or there's 1,000 different things that I could list out there, right? So, I completely understand. But what is the most important thing to do is once you've identified what you've done wrong, you got to fix it. Right? You got to be coachable, right? You got to be a team player, and you need somebody on that defense to become the voice of reason, to kind of be that leader. Because they go as you go, right? Mm-hmm. Figure out who that leader might be.
It might be a Mike Smith, who we've heard showed leadership in addition to tackling in practice. I mean, the veterans are Gabe Hall and T.J. Franklin.
As well as Matt Jones,
right? As well as Matt Jones. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Bryson Jackson, he's been around for 7 years now. I mean, literally 7 years.
I think I only missed him by a couple of years.
I think you're right. But, he hasn't had as much just play time as some of those other guys. I mean, Devin Lemire, you talk about a guy with about as many starts, as a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, as Bryson Jackson has. By the way, here's a little number we'll throw in, because I was thinking about this. Bryson Jackson was part of Matt Rule's first recruiting class. He played with Taylor Young, who was on the roster in 2013. Assume that there's at least one player on this roster who's going to redshirt somewhere along the way and then play out all 4 years. That person will be on the roster in 2027. Every Baylor roster from 2013 to 2027 will have had someone who played with Bryson Jackson on it. Just throw that out there. Just ponder that. That's 15 football seasons.
What degree do you get in 7 years of college?
Well, so if he took, let's just say he took an extra year to finish. And I don't know if he did, but you could get a undergraduate and a master's in 2 years. If you in 7 years, if you take an extra year to finish. If you don't take an extra year to finish undergrad, you could get a couple of master's degrees, or maybe even start working on a PhD. I don't know. There might be a 3-year master's program out there that I'm not aware of, but maybe it's one of those people who wants to do an MDiv and an MBA. I don't know, but I'm not saying I believe he was a communications major. But I guess my point is, if you took a 5th year to finish undergrad, then 2 years you got a master's, and that math adds up.
Or you could have 4 years of a bachelor's and 3 years of another bachelor's.
That's true.
You got options.
That would be an interesting approach. Very interesting approach.
I'm curious to figure out how many degrees he walks out of Baylor University.
Dr. Bryson Jackson out there on the football field.
Dr. Bryson Jackson, MD.
Yeah. Well, he has seen a few things in his Baylor career, and hopefully he can build on this week out there at the star position, or at the star position next week for the Bears. Well, that is Coffey is for closers following a dispiriting game today in the opener, 42-31 to Texas State. But the Bears will try to bounce back against a future Big 12 conference opponent and a top 25 foe in Utah. We'll take our final timeout and then come back and take a look at that one. Get ready for next week. Tonight we played a night game, early morning next week, so get here early to cheer on the Bears. Back to talk about that after this here on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
For a limited time, get high-performance, ultra-reliable internet from Astound Broadband, starting as low as $25 per month. And now we have mobile, too. Visit astound.com to order the #1 rated internet. Create the perfect plan with fast speeds to meet all your needs. Plus, get a 2-year price lock when you upgrade to award-winning gig internet. No contracts, no hidden monthly fees, and no data caps. Switch today. Head to astound.com or call 1-800-4ASTOUND. Restrictions apply. See website for details.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Come shop the greatest selection in Central Texas and save big on Ram truck.
Down goes Tech.
Sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab 20% off MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus, if you're a first responder, you get an extra $500 bonus cash. We've got the inventory and we're making big deals. Hurry in today. They won't last long. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Hi, this is John Morris for Green Eye Associates. Let Green Eye Associates, Doctors Leanne Green and Avery Platt help you see Waco clearly. Their experienced team enjoys making your eye exam fun, easy, and accurate, providing trustworthy and honest communication about your eyes and eyewear. Visit them on Lake Air Drive or at greeneyeassociates.com to see their services and a wide selection of eyewear made on-site by experts. Green Eye Associates, official optometrist of Baylor Athletics.
You're listening to Baylor Football on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Opening Saturday night of the 2023 season for the Bears. Technically, week 1 of college football. There was a week 0 prior, so the second Saturday of the season. But for the Bears, they're going to have to wait another week to pick up their first win after a 42-31 loss tonight to Texas State. So, you know, if you play the, well, we lost to Texas State, so how are we going to beat the nation's number 15 team? You could play that game.
One play at a time.
One play at a time. It's going to be a different week. Now, you've got a Utah team, Elliot, who was without their quarterback, Cam Rising, who was injured in the Rose Bowl last year. Honestly, they didn't look too hobbled by it in their win over Florida. We'll find out. I think really there's going to be a lot of quarterback drama now this week, right? Baylor fans are going to be looking to see how Blake Shapen is doing, if it's going to be Sawyer Robertson. Utah fans at some point will find out whether it's during the week or if you wait till kickoff of next week and see who trots out there.
Yeah.
If it's going to be Cam Rising, we don't know that, but we do know this. Baylor's going to play a very good football team next week, a very physical football team, a team in whom an SEC team marched in their stadium this past Thursday night and was making cracks on Instagram about the size of their stadium. Yep, and they went back home with a loss. Utah is a good football team, and it's going to be a very tough matchup for the Bears. So Elliot, why should we have any optimism? Why should we have any optimism next week? And I say that slightly, not really sarcastically, but also knowing that we've got to turn it around. And why should we feel like the team's going to do that?
Why do we watch the game?
I want to see what happens.
I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And why do we care what happens? Or why are we interested in watching what happens? Because you never know what's going to happen. I'm watching Wyoming beat Tech right now.
They just did.
Wasn't that the dark horse to win our conference this year was Tech?
Everyone's been talking about Tech.
Right? Is there a chance that Tech still wins the conference even though they lost to Wyoming?
Yes.
Right? It's a game of probabilities at this point. Now, you're looking for something spectacular. And from one week to the next, I feel like there's no bigger opportunity in any sport than college football to see a team that can go and lose to Texas State one week and be a top 10 team in Utah the week after. It just doesn't exist in sports. That's why the sport is growing at the rate that it is. That's why they're paying $100 million to football teams to broadcast their rights on TV, right? We're going to go in there. We're going to go to the film room, right? People are going to have a fire lit under them. They're going to play tough. They're going to play tough next week. I have no doubt in my mind that Baylor's going to play tough next week. But there's always that chance that even though we played a really tough game this week, really poor game this week, that we come out firing next week. right? And then we have a chance to go out there and really, really play well. And so it's college football, man. It's fun. Enjoy it, right? I think that everybody should be here because we only get 8 chances to do this a year, right? And you have a really good football team that's coming in. And the last time a team from Utah showed up into Waco, what happened?
Send them back home with an L.
Send it back
future
home with an L,
future
baby.
conference rival.
Come on,
Wow,
man.
you're right.
It's a lot in common.
You know, and you look at this. You know, you look at a couple areas that we picked to kind of put in the doghouse. Whether it's the play of the lines tonight. You know, I think we like what we've seen from Eric Mateos in years past. That that BYU game you referenced, our offensive line was pretty dominant in that football game at times, and I want to see how much this line can improve from one week to the next. Obviously, there's some work to do, but am I confident they can play a pretty decent amount better than they did tonight, even against a good team like Utah? I would say yes. I am. Now they got some work to do, but you do see that big improvement oftentimes from week 1 to week 2. The other part of it is the defense, and look, it's a young defensive unit. You've also got, I think, finding that symmetry between them, between Matt Pallage. This was the first game he's called as a defensive coordinator. He was the co-DC at Oregon last year. Calling the game wasn't his responsibility. What have we seen from him here at Baylor? Good things. So they just got, everyone's kind of licking their wounds right now, but I think the areas that we've talked about are areas. Now, will they improve well enough to beat Utah? Time will tell. But can they be a lot better than they were this week? I say that not just because you could make the crack. Well, there's nowhere to go but up, and that's maybe partially true, but not entirely true. But do I feel like they could get it together and play much better one week to the next? The answer would be yes. Now, time will tell if it's good enough to beat Utah. But those are areas that you can build on and improve on, and those would have made the difference if they were just a little bit better tonight in both phases.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about the idea of falling in love with the process, right, of the day-to-day that goes into a football season. It's hard to do, right? But if you want to be successful, you have to fall in love with the day-to-day. And sometimes the outcome, which you can't ultimately control all the time,
We appreciate everyone tuning in tonight on our flagship station, ESPN Central Texas, here on the Baylor Sports Media Network. Everyone watching along on Facebook Live, also on YouTube. I'm learning there's a few new things here. We got going on YouTube here.
Bells and whistles,
People
man.
are jumping in. Yeah, some great additions here in our partnership with Playfly, and we appreciate. We got Gordon Hunter and Jordan Chun in here with us. Jordan's been helping out all over the place today on the broadcast. So we appreciate both of them. Good to see you again. Looking forward to next week, and we'll see if I have a little happy result to talk about.
Run it back, baby. We're back here next week.
Sounds good. Well, that will wrap things up. I want to say thanks again to all those names we just mentioned and all of you for tuning in this Saturday evening. Hope to see you out here at McLean Stadium. Again, 11 o'clock kickoff. It's going to be a big game against a top 15 opponent. See if the Bears can bounce back from this one and even the season record at 1-1. Tonight, a tough one, 42-31 the final. Texas State with the victory. Appreciate y'all joining us here tonight on the Postgame Fan Forum. We'll talk to you next week on the Baylor Sports Media Network. Good night for now from McLean Stadium.
TFNB, your bank.
All right, guys. We'll talk.